A recovered alcoholic. My name is Pat Rogan. And thanks to the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous outlined in this big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program of AA, I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. But that, I cannot even tell you how grateful I am. AA didn't just save my life, but it gave me a new life. A new life worth living. I'll tell you, it's an incredible way of life. If you're new here, stick around. It's just, it's not all about not drinking and going to meetings. You know, there's just such a joy and a camaraderie and just an amazing life that we get to live because of this program, or I get to live because of this program. I think I told you last week, I used to make fun of the guy that used to say, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. And I used to go up to him after the meeting and say, do you know where you are? And this ain't Disney World, dude. This is AA, you know? And he would just smile at me. And I would say, you don't even have a car. You don't have a girlfriend. You don't even have a job. Because I was talking about something, and he was talking about something totally different. He was talking about the inside, and I was talking about the outside. And I was just convinced when I got here that if I could just get the outside right, if I could just get my stuff back, I could just get her back, it back, them back, my life would come together again. And when we find out here, that's not the issue. You know, we talked about it last week, and we'll go over it again a little bit before I get into the fourth step. But we're getting ready to take some action here, and it's drastic. You know, the book even uses that word, that these are drastic proposals that we're asking you to engage in here. You know, we're asking you to look in the mirror, look at yourself. And why would we do that? I mean, why would I look at me and not look out at you? You know, well, because I'm dying when I get here. And you may not be there. I mean, I lost everything that I cared about, and everybody that cared about me was gone when I got here. And you don't have to get to that point to be here. I mean, there's only really a couple of requirements here. And I'm not talking about a requirement for membership. I'm talking about requirements for recovery, right? We know there's only one requirement for membership, and that's, it used to say honest desire, but we got to get rid of that honest shit because you guys ain't capable of that shit yet. But the only requirement is the desire to stop drinking. But there's requirements for recovery. And there's two major requirements, and it's the first two steps. You know, we get into the third step, it says being convinced. We have to be convinced of the first two to move on. I have to be convinced of the first two for you even to tell me what the third step means. For me even to make the decision to go through with the rest of this program, I have to be convinced. Convinced of what? That I am powerless over alcohol. That means that my life's unmanageable. I cannot stop drinking, and I cannot stop starting drinking. The obsession of the mind and the allergy of the body. And you have to be convinced of that. It's not maybe. No. It's yes. I can't stay stopped. And once I start, I can't control the amount I take. Now, that was obvious in my life, and I didn't even have to grow into that. You know, the line I crossed was my lips at age 16. And I don't know anything about controlled drinking. I don't know why you would want to do that. You know, I loved the effect produced by alcohol. I was not somebody that ordered a nice bottle of wine and had 3 glasses with dinner. That was not, moving around and look at the color and the consistency. That was not who I wanted to know what proof it was. You know, give me Lancers. That's 20 proof. Give me a bottle of that. You know, and that's all. Give me some Mad Dog. You know, we'll go to jail tonight. That just seemed to be the result of Mad Dog. I don't know what the heck happened. I don't know if it was me or it, but that's where I ended up every time I drank that shit. But I have to be convinced. And you know, the truth is that my life was unmanageable, drunk and sober. You know, because when I was drinking, alcohol managed my life. And if I wasn't drinking, emotions managed my life. How I felt directed my life. And I was tormented as a child. Tormented. And I needed to escape. I found it was a gift when I found the escape through a bottle. Before the bottle came along, I was finding escape through adrenaline. I was an adrenaline junkie. I was a kid. It was a motorcycle, motocross kid. Give me the highest jump you got. Give me the biggest cliff you have. Let me challenge. I was not upset if I got hurt because the pain of being hurt got rid of the emotional pain. I was a kid that jumped off roofs to see how high you could jump off a roof without breaking your ankle. It's about 16 feet. That's a true story. I shouldn't have had a running start when I jumped. That's a requirement. And the doctor's opinion is not an opinion anymore. It's fact. And like I said, I think I caught the genetic bullet. I come from a long line of drugs. Our family tree had bottles hanging on it, But you can grow into it. You can drink your way into it. The body, the alcohol and drugs are destroyers of tissue. At some point, your liver and your pancreas and your kidneys just start not processing it properly, and you become allergic to it. You develop the allergy with age. As we get older, we grow to a certain point, and unfortunately, the body starts dying. And in our, late 30s, early 40s, it no longer processes the liquor like it used to in our 20s and 30s. And we end up here. Doesn't matter. The book tells us once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. The doctors tell us once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. The doctor's opinion is not an opinion anymore. They've targeted the part of the brain that is defective when it comes to processing liquor. The other thing that we have to be convinced of is the second step, that I can't reel this in, that only a power greater than human power will solve the problem. And now for me, that's obvious. I don't know about you, but for me, that's obvious. I could not stay stopped to keep my kids. I was willing to give up children for a drink. Now, I didn't consciously make that decision. Alcohol made that decision for me. I've given up careers. I've given up my freedom. I've promised judges that I would never pick up again if they let me out. I was drunk before I got home. There was no consequence. There was no human power on this planet. Relationships. I've given up marriages. Because nobody tells me what to do. I'm a grown-ass man. Yeah. That's being powerless. That's having no power, no solution over my drinking. And if you have another issue, an outside issue, substitute that when I say drinking. Because the only difference between our program is the identification part of this program. Once you identify as an addict or an alcoholic, our program will work for everybody. But if you're an addict, you just might not identify with the first page of More About Alcoholism, right? You might want to get a different book because you'll never smoke crack like a normal person. You'll never control and enjoy your crack smoke or your IV use, by the way. And by the way, the second step says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could, not would, could restore us to sanity. That means some conditions have to be met. That means that we have to take some specific action for that to happen. Now, I was convinced of that when I got to the third step. When I'm sponsoring people, you need to be convinced of that when we get to that step, or we're not moving on. Bill used to say, reread the book to this point or throw it away. I don't suggest you throw it away, but reread it, rethink it. Look, I'm not talking to you addicts, but you know what? If you're not convinced that you can't drink, or you can, if you're not convinced you can't control it or stay stopped, go try. The book suggests that. Drug addicts don't do that shit. You got fentanyl and shit out there now. Don't go out there experimenting. You have no idea what you're getting. I would never suggest you go out and try some controlled crack smoke. Don't do it. Not happening. I probably just violated a bunch of traditions here, didn't I? Yes. Where's the tradition police at? Raise your hand. Yeah. The decision we're about to make in having a power greater than human power manage our lives, for lack of a better term, God. Right? That's what I label my higher power. God, the God of my understanding. And that's the beauty of this program. You get to choose, not create, by the way. You get to choose a power greater than yourself of your own understanding. Call it whatever you want. Bill gives us some suggestions. Spirit of the universe, creative intelligence. I love energy. Everything is energy. Everything is pure energy. Everything is connected. You can't create it. You can't destroy it. There's no beginning. There's no end. Everything is pure energy. For me, that just connects the whole universe. That to me is everlasting. I love that idea. And that invisible power that I came to believe in was a power of forgiveness, and it was a power of mercy. And that's what I needed. I needed forgiveness and I needed mercy. And I didn't even need to label it. I just needed to believe that there was a possibility that there was power greater than you, power here that was going to solve my problem. That's the second step. If you're atheist here, just say maybe. The book is asking you to take one step off of where you're at, to go from no to maybe. Why? Because you're going to die. Because you can go on to the bitter end, blocking out your intolerable situation, or you can accept spiritual hell. You can die an alcoholic death. This is out of the book. You can die an alcoholic death, or you can accept spiritual hell. You get to make the choice. So what's wrong with, okay, maybe? Maybe this will work for me. Because I don't have any other option. I don't know what else to do. And that's where I was. Now, the third step, the conversation changed from mental and physical to behavioral, didn't it? Last week we were talking about behavior. That Bill is telling us that the core of our issue is in our behavior. That we're selfish, we're self-centered, we're driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-pity, and we step on the toes of fellows, they retaliate, and we blame them. That we are extreme, I love that, we are extreme examples of self-will run riot. And the next line is, but we usually don't think so. No, I'm not. I'm a giver. We talked about these instinctual drives that we misuse, right? This social instinct, the security instinct, and these sex instincts that God made pleasurable for us so that we would satisfy the need to be liked and accepted, the need to be part of something or in charge of something, the need for material, the need for shelter, the need for, in this country, money. In other countries, it's corn. In other countries, it's cattle. Some parts of this country, it's cattle. The need for food, the need to survive, the need to procreate. These God-given instinctual drives, which are pleasurable. And I'm a pleasure freaking seeker. I am a pleasure seeker. They become a drug to me. And I'm willing to violate your principles and mine to get more satisfaction in those areas. God intended them to be here, and I cross that line of principles into an area where I am violating your and my principles to satisfy that instinct. I start lying, cheating, and stealing to get more attention, to get more power, to get a better job, to get a bigger house, to make more money, to get a nicer car. I'm buying stuff I can't afford to impress people I don't even know. I'm stepping outside of what principles tell me is acceptable when it comes to the sex instinct. I'm incapable of being loyal. I'm a pleasure seeker. And what happens when I violate your principles and mine? I get absolution through the bottle. It makes it okay. I'll just drink the guilt away. I'll just drink the shame away. And I become addicted to both. And here's the problem. When I give up the liquor, how do I get rid of the guilt, the remorse, and the shame now? How do I deal with the anger now? How do I deal with the fear now, sober? That's why it's so hard to stay stopped, isn't it? Because I got to deal with me. I love in Bill's story when the market crashes and they're all committing suicide and jumping out of windows. What Bill said, F that, I went back to the bar. Right? That's me. That's me. Somehow, there's a story in the back of the book called Window of Opportunity. And there's a paragraph in there that I love. And it says that when normies can't live up to their principles, they change their behavior to meet the principle. Active alcoholics lower their principles, right? They also say, like, if a normie can't live up to their goals, they change their behavior to meet the goal. We lower our goals, right? And eventually, I'm in conflict with everybody and everything. I'm in conflict with myself. I'm in conflict spiritually. I'm in conflict emotionally. And I'm in conflict physically with you. In all three areas of my life. All three dimensions of my life, I'm in conflict. And I don't have anything to medicate with anymore. It's just not working. I'm going to tell you something. If it still worked, I'd still be doing it. That's a fact. I stopped drinking because alcohol would no longer justify my behavior. Because I was in a hotel room drinking to pass out, not drinking for relief anymore. I used to get to a certain point where I would find relief. I would get that, that moment where it just, thank God. So, but I couldn't get there anymore. It wouldn't work anymore. And I was drinking to pass out, to get up to drink to pass out. And now I'm in here and I'm dry, not sober. I'm dry. And I can't stand the way I feel. So I shared with you guys. Dennis probably remembers Lee May, around there. But I was 3 months ago. I was suicidal. I couldn't stand the way I felt for one more second. And I can't drink. What's the difference between that and a hotel room? So I needed to make a decision on how am I going to deal with that. The book even changes the conversation again, doesn't it? It goes mental, physical, behavioral.
It won't be attention.
Right?
Usually like it.
Spiritual disease. Not only do we suffer mentally and physically, but we suffer spiritually. It's the only time you'll see the word disease in the book, that we have a spiritual disease. And he says that unless we overcome that spiritual malady, that spiritual sickness, we will never win out against the mental and the physical. We'll never win out over the obsession and the compulsion if we don't fix this spiritual malady, the spiritual sickness caused by my behavior. Caused by my behavior. And I'm not even sure you're right. I shared with you guys last week, you guys had told me put shit in a God box and turn it over. The hell does that mean? I said, no, I need an attorney. This is it. It says in the fourth step that alcohol is but a symptom. We got to get down to causes and conditions. When? What are the words that the book uses after step 3? Next, right? And we'll never overcome our drinking unless at once we get down to causes and conditions. I don't know where people came up with take your time. That's nowhere in the book. That's not the kind of language our book uses. Next, now, at once. That's the kind of stuff I see in there. I don't know. There's such, I don't know. I mean, maybe I blame the people that have time in the rooms, for scaring people out of the fourth step. Oh, when do you get to the fourth step? I'm on my fourth step. This is a positive step. I'm dying inside. You have an answer to it. Don't make it fearful. This is possible. This is positive. This is going to bring the light, bring us into the light. I need to get some light on me. The God within is covered up with resentment and fear and guilt and remorse and shame. And I need to uncover that God within. And I think of everybody, and I love when Ben used to talk about it, the soul, the part of you that knows that it knows that it knows, the conscience, that part of you that knows right from wrong. I love Marion's analogy. The part that says, put the cart back, right? I love when you said that, I got my guys all put the freaking cart back, because now they think about it. I do too. That's what you said it. I'm like, got to put the damn cart back. That's just the right thing to do. You got to pick up the litter. You got to do the right thing now. Why? Because my spiritual condition relies on me doing the right thing. Why not? Why not? Got to get down to cause and condition. Why is what is going, am I really selfish and self-centered? Am I really self-will run riot? That's what this is. This is about finding the truth. I've heard people say you're not ready for a fourth step. That is such bullshit. That is such crap. That is not what this book says. If you're convinced of the first two, you're ready for a fourth step. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. You're either going to get down to causes and conditions or you're going to pick up again. It just becomes about how long can you hold your breath, right? I mean, really, right? That's what it becomes about. How long can I stand the way I feel before that gets so overwhelming that I just say, F it. F it. That's my favorite paragraph I told you last week and more about alcoholism. What about when we go out and deliberately get drunk, knowing what the consequence is going to be? But you know what? I'll pay the price because I can't stand the way I feel for another minute. We even have people around us going, don't do it. You're going to jail. F it. Yeah. She's leaving. I don't care. You're going to lose your kids. I don't care. I love Bill's analogy, though. I love the business inventory, but maybe it confuses people. I don't know. I think it really clears up what we're trying to do here, right? He talks about a fact-finding, fact-facing method to find out the truth about ourselves. That's what we want to know. Is what they told me in the third step true? Is it true? Am I really that person? Is it true? Well, let's find the facts. Let's face the facts, and let's decide if they're right or not. That's really how simple it is. And I don't think there's a better format. I know that maybe what makes it confusing is all the different treatment centers that have different formats and different forms. And, maybe I know Hazelden had one, Texas had one. I guess people in treatment want to be unique, so they don't want to use the inventory in the book. I don't know, but I'm a Charlie Parmalee clone. And I'm a big book seminar guy. That's how, I learned how to do this stuff. And I think the 5-column inventory outlined in the book is the way to go. And if you want to do a 4-column, fine. But we see that there's definitely 3 and an L. He shows us 3 and then 2 pages later, he gives us the other 2. But I think that's the way to do it. I don't know. I don't know where all the misconception came out. Maybe you see the word moral and you think amoral, immoral, right? Maybe you think it's a list of dirty, nasty stuff you're supposed to write down. Bill was an English language. He was a literature major. If he wanted you to write a list of dirty, nasty things you did, he would have said immoral or amoral. He said moral. Moral means truth. Let's do a searching and fearless. Let's do a fact-finding and fact-facing effort to learn the truth about ourselves. And why not use the format that's in the book? I think part of it too is anybody like me where they read a paragraph and they don't know what they just read? Am I the only person that can read a chapter and not have a clue what the hell I just read? Am I the only person when you tell me your name, I don't remember it when you walk away? I think that's part of it. I think, most of the instructions in the 4th step are in one paragraph, and I read it and I miss the simple instructions and I move on. And later you see telling your life story and you think that's what you're supposed to write. Don't torture me with that if I sponsor you, please. Yeah. My life story, 95% of it has nothing to do with why I'm an alcoholic. But it'll cover up the 5% that has everything to do with why I'm an alcoholic. Where I was born and how I grew up and all that kind of stuff has nothing to do with why I can't stay stopped and why I can't control once I start. Why I needed a drink is another story. My childhood, the trauma that you've been through or people have been through, that might be why you needed a drink. But it's not why you can't stay stopped, and it's not why you can't control it. My brother grew up in the same house. He's not one of us. He thinks about the same childhood. He grew up in that same house. He thinks about it. He has 2 or 3 drinks. He goes to bed. He goes watches TV. I have 2 or 3 drinks, and I go to town. Get an 8-ball. different reaction. Now, 3 out of 4 of us caught the bullet. He is allergic to bananas. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Eats a banana. It's like people who are allergic to fish. We used to think it was funny when we were kids, but Until we thought he was going to die one time, we stopped feeding him the bananas. But I'll tell you about my brother's banana thing. He has never thought that it was where he was eating the bananas. You know, he never thought, like, I'm going to move to Florida and eat the bananas and I'll be fine there. You know, he never thought, like, it's the people I'm eating the damn bananas with. You know, if I just ate these bananas with normal people, I wouldn't be allergic to them. He's never said to himself, you know, it's those damn dull bananas. You know, if I can eat the chiquitas, you know, I probably won't be allergic to them. He just don't eat freaking bananas. But we suffer from something different. We suffer from something internal. I want to tell you, my fourth step was not a big deal. I didn't have a lot on my first one. My sponsor was clear. I don't want to hear about the guy that pulled the chair out from under you in third grade. I don't want to hear about every girl you ever went out with or every girl ever. I want to know what is killing you now. Right? Let's stop the bleeding. You know, what is killing you now? What is driving you crazy right now? And she was at the top of my list. You know? The bitch. She was under three categories. She was my wife, my ex-wife, current wife, and then ex again. But and by the way, the instructions are make a list. That means don't go left to right, top to bottom. Right? Inventory is a list of items. We don't want to relive it here. We're going to relive it in 5. We want a list. We want to make this as simple and as easy as possible. Who am I angry at? Who am I pissed off at? Who am I resentful towards? It was easy. It was my wife, my ex-wife, my current wife, same person, the police, my wife's lawyer, the IRS, my father. That was it. That was just those issues were driving me crazy. I said, you're going to do it. We're going to do another one down the road. Don't worry about this. Some of you call it a 10-step. Some of you call it 11-step. Some of you do multiple 4 steps. Read the 12 and 12, step 10. You know, it talks about multiple inventories. I've done many 4 steps. I have nothing against multiple 4 steps. I call it getting current. Let's get current. You know, what's rent space in your head now? What's rent space in your head today? And once my guys get to step 10 and 11, we do nightly inventory. So we try to stay current. But there's stuff that I see on that nightly inventory we need to do a 4-step on. So let's take that item and let's just inventory that. But we will be doing inventory the rest of our lives in some way, shape, or form. This program is all about self-examination. It's not about looking out. It's about looking in. It's not about changing them. It's about changing us and our attitudes. We can't change them. I can't change you. I'm incapable of changing you. I can maybe be an example of change, hopefully. But list the resentment. It's top to bottom. By the way, it means to refeel, right? Resentment means to refeel. Feel again, right? Like something happens. I love the book says, something happens real or imagined. I love that. Real or imagined. Like it was a legitimate hurt, or you just felt like it hurt, right? Or maybe you exaggerated to a point where it hurt. But either way, even when it's legitimate hurt, we walk away and we start replaying that incident over and over and over again. And each time we replay it, it gets a little bit worse for us. And they become more the criminal each time we replay it. Right? And when I'm telling you the story, I was minding my own business. And they came along and bam, for no reason. But I've been wrong. I've been not paid for jobs. That's a legitimate resentment, right? The guy just doesn't pay you. Do the work and they don't pay you. That's legitimate. And my immediate reaction is, how am I going to get this bastard back? Doesn't he know who he's messing with? I'll blow his mailbox up. You know, he thinks he's in a gated community that I won't be able to get in here. You know, I'll follow somebody in. I'll get in. But that's the stuff that goes through my head. But then these damn spiritual principles kick in. And I realize I need to let it go. Well, how do I let it go? Well, our book tells us to pray. Pray for them. Pray for that. Treat them as you would a sick person, as we are. Everybody's got their thing. Everybody's broken. Everybody, some way, shape, or form, has their thorn. I love Bishop Barron's talk about the thorn, and we'll talk more about that later. Everybody has their issue, and I have to admit that I'm broken. They're broken. They're just broken differently. And look, I can't afford to be pissed off. I can't afford to hold on to the resentment because I'll get drunk. They won't. They won't. That's real. What's the 12 and 12 talks about? Justifiable anger, right? That's the worst. That's the worst when you really got a good reason to be pissed off. How do you let that go? I'm not capable of it without God's help. I am not capable. I have to literally pray for them. Shannon and I would like to talk about, we were having dinner at Bonefish Max one night, and the waitress comes by, she just throws the menus on the table and keeps walking. I'm like, geez, my normal reaction would have been, I got to bring the manager over here. I need to talk to a manager. I need to get another waitress over here. This is BS. Nobody should treat us like this. She came back. I said, are you okay? She said, no, it's been one of those days. I said, sit down. And she sat with Shannon and I and shared her day with us. And she got up and walked away, and we had the best service we've ever had in our lives. Right? Just looking at it, the book says, look at it from a different angle. Look at it from a different angle. But then there's the imagined ones. There's the one where I always like to tell a guy, I come from this tough love men's group, Boca Boys Club, right? And I learned how to behave in AA. You don't get up when the speaker's speaking. Go to the bathroom before the meeting or after the meeting. Wear a coat, jacket when you're speaking, or a collar, at least a collar. Don't come up here with a t-shirt on or white beater. Show some respect for the room, right? And put your phone away. If you pulled in the Boca Boys, if you pulled your phone out, Bud Reichart, you remember Bud Reichart? He'd throw his cigarettes out. Son of a bitch. Put that phone away. And sometimes, okay, go ahead, we'll wait for you. Make the call. But you didn't dare. You didn't dare. And they taught me a lot about respecting the program. No crosstalk. Of course, they would in the meeting. They would. You didn't want to share something too personal because they come back at you. We had guys that would share that they wanted to use, and they just getting ready to go to the doctor, get a prescription. We're going to call your doctor right now. Well, no, that's not necessary. No, it's necessary. Right? Remember Dick, right? We take Dick outside and call him right now. Call the pharmacy right now. Cancel the order. Oh, he was pissed. He didn't know it. I Baker acted him once. He told me he was going to kill me from inside the room. They got me locked in here. I said, yeah. I'm going to kill you when I get out. Maybe you'll think differently when you get out. By the way, he gave me this book that I use in the seminars and stuff. Here's what it says. Pat, thank you for saving my life. You will always be in my heart. 1201. He's been sober since then. Yeah. That's my boy Nick. I hope he's on here. But where the hell was I going with this? So I'm in the meeting, and I'm giving my sponsee next to me some really vital information while the speaker's speaking. And somebody turned around and went, shh. And all my guys look at me and go, they just told him, shh. And all I heard was, shut up. And I didn't hear it. You ever have something like that happen when you didn't hear another word in the meeting? I don't know what the speaker said after that. I just started replaying that event until I got outside, and I said, what's up? And what happened there? I said, did you hear him tell me to shut up? Now, he shushed me, but I heard shut up, right? And he says, really? He told you to shut up? I said, yeah, he told me to shut the F up. And they go, oh, and now I got them on that's what I want is some self-pity. Oh, you shouldn't be talked to like that in your own home group, But no, I know. I should probably get another group. I should go somewhere else. I just thought of the other night. some resentments, if you want to call it that, can lead to a positive, right? You can if you handle it properly, right? So I come out of the bathroom with pants on, by the way, and I don't have my shirt on, and I go, well, I'm starting to get a little bit of a belly here, and my wife says, yeah, maybe you should eat less, right? And so what I heard was, you're getting fat because you eat too much, right? And I played that tape a little while, like, geez, yeah. And the next day, when I went to the gym, I usually do, and I make sure I went to the gym the next day, and I usually do 9 sets of 30 sit-ups, different types of sit-ups. I did 60 the next day. So it motivated me. Now, instead of 30 each set, I'm doing 60 each set. I'm going to get rid of this shit. So it can be a positive. I shared one time in a meeting about my opinion of a certain drug that I think is really overprescribed in AA. You know, I mean, God, you just blew up your life. You just drank 7 energy drinks, or we fed you 5 cups of coffee in a meeting, and you go back to treatment and tell them you can't sleep, and boom, you know, here's something. You know, how about not drinking all that damn energy drinks to wake up? You know, and maybe you should be up at night, since what you just did is destroying your life and other people's lives. And I said a specific drug, which I should not have done. And somebody came up to me after the meeting and said, who the hell are you to say what anybody should be taking? And I got my chest bowed up and I defended my position. And on the way home, I started replaying that, but not to make me better and her worse, to see where she might be right. And she was. She was absolutely right. I am not a doctor. I have no right telling anybody what they should or should not be on. Nothing. Now, I have opinion. I still have a strong opinion about that, but it don't belong here. I have no right to tell you that. She said it saved her life. How do I know it did? Probably did. So I learned something from the resentment using what this book has taught me to do. Why are you upset? Who are you upset with? What are you upset about? Why? What part of you was affected? Was it your social instinct, what people think of you? Or what you think about yourself, your self-esteem? Was it your security instinct, money or property, or emotional security? The need for people to depend on you, or the need to depend on somebody else? Or was it your sex instinct? And we just check the box. Some people like to write it. Maybe some people think it means more. I try to simplify it because we're going to go over this in the 5th step. We're going to get really clear on it in the 5th step. And it says, and I think, you know, the wife took the house, you know, took the kids, took the car, you know. And that was why I was mad. I was upset. And it affected everything in my life. Why am I mad at the police? They arrested me. But, you know, as soon as I write, they arrested me, I look at it and go, they were called to the scene. It wasn't, let's go get Pat tonight. You know? It was a 911 call. You know? I had to pay her lawyer. And that pissed me off, right? I have to pay somebody to come after me. That just didn't seem right. I had a little trouble letting that one go. You know? My father abandoning us, abandoning 4 kids, beating my mother in front of us. But I'll tell you, as I used to talk about my father's violence in our home like it happened every night. But when I saw it on paper, it probably happened a handful of times in our lives, you know. But I made it, when I told you the story, I told you every night he came home and beat my mother, and it's just not true. There were times where he came home and he took us to my grandfather's camp up in northwest Pennsylvania, Cook's Forest area, beautiful area, and we had the time of our lives, spotting deer, you know. And then my dad taught me a lot when it comes to mechanics. All the skills that I have, most of the skills I have with my hands came from my father and my uncle, both assholes, you know. Excuse me. They won't be listening to this. But it's about seeing the truth. And when it's on paper, there's something different about coming from here down the arm to the paper. There's just something different about looking at it on paper where I start to see the truth in it. Not all of it, but most of it. Most of it starts to drop away. And the book says the ones that don't fall away, we need to pray. We need to pray for them as we would a sick person. For us, not necessarily for them. Because what's it say? The grouch and the brainstorm are not for us. We can't handle anger and resentment and fear. We just can't handle it. Sober. I can't do it sober. I need a tool. My tool now is prayer. My tool now is God. Whatever you think that is. That's my tool now. And when I can't find it personally in my own way, I can find it right here in this room. As soon as I walk in these doors, I don't care, just a couple of us here when I walk. As soon as I walk in this door with my wife, let's get that God moment. And whatever was going on out there is out there, at least for an hour. At least for an hour. And I can find that when I call David, when I call Louie, when I call any of my guys that are sitting in this room right now. Anytime I call any of them, I connect with God. Anytime they call me, immediately, whatever's going on the outside is gone, and I'm connected to God again. I have so many other options. I feel the same thing when I walk into my church. Any church, by the way. Not just my church. My son's church up in South Point in Jacksonville, church by the Glades over in Coral Spring. Don't matter what church, Calvary, don't matter where I go. As soon as I walk in, I get that same feeling of safety. And that it's going to be okay. And it points me in the right direction again. I might be rehearsing that resentment, and as soon as I walk in there, boom. Start praying, man. Start praying. The last two columns are 2 pages later, and it's called the responsibility column because we really didn't take our inventory, did we? We took theirs. What did they do? We haven't looked at what we did then. So what's your responsibility in this? How about, I just didn't come home. I'm an alcoholic. I drank all the freaking time. I was gone for days at a time. I didn't show up at the baseball games. I didn't come home on Christmas Eve one year. Bought a bottle of champagne to celebrate Christmas Eve. Should have never opened it. You know? And you know what I heard? Anybody ever heard this? How could you? How could you? God, I heard that so many times. How could you? How could you step out of this marriage? How could you do that? That's a good question. That is a good question. If I'm morally bankrupt, I'm not speaking for you, I'm speaking for me. I was morally bankrupt when I got here. Anything that would change the way I felt, I was on board. But now that behavior's got to go. Because I can no longer drink the feelings away anymore. I can no longer disrupt everybody's life anymore and be okay with it. So why would she take the house? Put a roof over her children's head. My house, by the way. That's how I did it. She took my house. She took my car. She took my kids. Why would she do that? Because you're a terrible father. You're a drunk. You're unfaithful. You've racked up thousands and thousands of dollars worth of debt. The police was obvious. If you assault your wife, she calls 911, the police arrest you. Case closed. Don't need to look at that any further. But the IRS, they wanted my money. No, they wanted their money. I found out if you pay your taxes, they don't attach your bank accounts. I didn't know I thought it was some person, Ira Levy. Who the hell's Ira Levy? Right? It's an IRS levy. Just got to call my sponsor. Who's Ira Levy? Is that what it says? Oh, wait, IRS. I'll tell you the one I had trouble with, my father. Because I justified. I could not condone his behavior. But here's the deal. I became him. How sad is that? I became the person I hated. Right? I hated my father for assaulting my mother. Guess how I got here? I assaulted my wife. It was the beginning of the end. Took 2 more years. But that's how I got there. I don't condone his behavior, but I understand. When we get to 9th step, I'll talk more about that. Because as I look at the way he was raised and who he was raised by and his parents' behavior, how could he have been anybody else but who he was? And you start to understand and you start to pray for him. It's about seeing the truth. I'll tell you, I couldn't let the house go. I was consumed by the house for like a couple minutes. And Dennis Horgan, Dennis probably remember Dennis Horgan, but Dennis was he was such an influence in my early recovery. And Dennis used to come up there, whoever he knew and whoever he saw, it was always, "Hey, tough guy, how's your way working?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Oh, Dennis, I'm trying to get that house back now. I need that house." And I was the house. I mean, if you asked me how I was doing, I said, "She took the house." You know, and I spent, I saved, that was my identity. I saved $5,000 for a cocaine addict to save $5,000. That was impressive, right? Well, I had to put a lot of stuff on credit cards to end up with $5,000 worth of cash. You know what I mean? I had $100,000 in credit card debt when I walked in. So you can imagine I was sorting paychecks, you know, and I said, and he looks at me and he says, "Yeah, you're really worried about that house, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're going to lose it." And he'd walk away. I said, "Jesus, Dennis, come on, give me some hope." You know, I see Dennis a couple of days later. He said, "Hey, Pat, how's that thing going with you? How's your way working, tough guy?" I said, "Dennis, I'm still working on getting that house back." He said, "You're going to lose it." And he'd walk away. And somebody said that I needed to go to the back of the book and read Freedom from Bondage in the back of the book, the story. And as soon as I opened it, saw it was written by a woman, I was going to read it. But I was desperate. And a short version on page 552, it talks about praying for somebody for 2 weeks straight, whether you mean it or not. Just do it. Blind faith, just do it. You want relief? Just do this. And I started out with, "Give her what she deserves," was my original prayer. "Please, God, give her what she deserves and give me my house back." And I want to tell you something. I don't know where it was exactly in those 2 weeks, but at some point I had this epiphany. And this voice says to me, "Pat, are you going to really kick your children out of that house?" I never even thought about it. Are you going to tell your children to leave that house? Leave their bedrooms? The next one was, do you really want the mother of your children to be miserable? And I saw Dennis the next day, and Dennis said, "Hey, tough guy, how's that house thing going?" I said, "Dennis, I don't care about the house anymore." He says, "You're going to keep it." You know? I don't know how you guys know this stuff. I don't know what kind of soothsayers you are or what connection you have. But I called her up and said, "You know what? You can have the house. I don't care about the house anymore." And she goes, "I don't want it. You know, I can't afford this house. Just get us an apartment. You know, find us a place to live." And I said, "All right." And I've been in that house ever since. Never lost it. I never lost the house. It's just staying the course and doing what's best for them, and then I seem to get blessed. You know, doesn't it seem like that here? This economy here is so different. This is the only place you give something away and you get more. You know, it doesn't happen anywhere else. You give property away, you have less. You give money away, you have less. You give anything material away, you have less. But here you give it away and you get more. That's an amazing gift. Thanks for letting me be here today.